Okay, welcome to Team Meeting. We are here for the stats for the month of April. So we are talking about the market stats here in Southeast Idaho, and we're going to give a synopsis, kind of what's going on, what's happened in the past month, and it's been a big month. So we're going to do something a little bit differently, but just before we begin, I just want to mention, if you have ever thought about getting into real estate, talking to everybody in the camera, if you ever thought about getting into real estate, or you know the greatest salesperson and you think they would be a great real estate agent, we would love to talk to them. Our team is always growing, and we'd love to help people create this amazing career in real estate. So give us a call or call one of our agents. Okay, so we have a visitor for the first time ever. So we do market stats, real estate market stats, every single month, but there's a big topic now in Southeast Idaho, and it is the rental market. So we have a special guest, Jake. Come on in. Jake Durtschi is
Jake
owner
Durtschi.
of Jacob Grant. Come on in.
Oh, get on stage,
You click through your
everybody.
things. This is what you got to coming up. So I just want to mention really quick, Jake, who is, by the way, the owner of the beautiful deck here that has always let us come, which is fantastic. And he's been amazing. And we send all of our clients to Jake. If you need property management, Jacob Grant Property Management is amazing.
He manages our property.
That's right. And just a little mention, I realize here, just so you know, so Jake, you've been investing in over 15 years in Idaho Falls. I pulled this all off his website. He doesn't know I'm saying it. And he's previously served as president of Eastern Idaho Apartment Association. You continue to work as an active broker here in Idaho Falls and is a certified property manager by the Institute of Real Estate Management. And you direct $187 million of residential real estate. You are impressive.
Oh.
You're impressive. Okay. All right, Jake. Jake's going to talk us through a couple stats and give us a little idea of what's going on in the rental market.
Perfect.
So take it away.
Okay, so as you guys probably know, rentals are going up. And so we've seen a huge decline in properties available compared to who wants to rent places out. And so what we've seen is because the supply is so low compared to the demand, rents have increased. You guys probably have all seen this. Over the last 3 years, we've seen rents increase about 9% per year. That is continuing on this year. Right now, as you probably know, there's a whole bunch of new construction. And so we expect that to shift and to change over the next 12 to 24 months. But right now, we're continuing to see a 9% increase. Average square footage, basically when we look at rents, we say, all right, how much is a rent per square foot? Again, it's increased substantially. And so if you look at the average one bedrooms, they've gone up substantially. 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, everything has gone up.
So what that says is 3 bedroom is about $1,300 a month for a 3-bedroom apartment.
This is last year's data, so it's increased about another 10% since then. And even, if you go look at some of the townhomes back behind Starbucks over on Jenny Lee, those ones are going to be at the $1,700 to $1,800 range. So that's a 3-bedroom, 1-car garage, about $1,350 on the square footage. And those are renting for $1,600 to $1,700.
And those are brand new.
Those are brand new.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you look at that rental price, you're looking at over $1 a foot. Which again, if you look at 2 years ago, we were 80 cents a foot or so. Usually you're going to get a little higher rent per square foot on a 1-bedroom or a studio compared to a 3-bedroom or a house. Okay, this is that average square footage. So in the research that we did last year, we basically just looked at a random sample of apartments that are available, rented out apartments, and that's where the data came from.
Jake, can I ask a question?
Yep.
How much more expensive is it to rent a 3-bedroom home versus a 3-bedroom apartment?
It really depends on the age, but if you're looking at a 3-bedroom, let's say we're comparing brand new to brand new, 3-bedroom home is going to be somewhere in the area of $2,000 to $2,200. A 3-bedroom townhome is going to be more like, that $1,600 to $1,700 range. So they're pushing up to about $1.50 a foot. Another interesting thing is I think Jessica, you were telling me that the prices have increased in the last year about 28%.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you see that top number up there, and that's over a 3-year period. But
27.
It's just really similar numbers. It's over a longer period of time, so the rents are coming up kind of behind the values.
Is that because of lease terms? You can't really.
Some of it's some of it's lost to lease, exactly what you're talking about, but there's also just a lag, it seems like.
Just a lag, yeah.
And as you know, when properties are cheaper, interest rates are lower, it costs you less to get the same type of house versus rents, on the other hand, you can continue to get a little bit nicer place. So since the last 3 years, interest rates have been so low, it's kept those rents down a little bit. It seems like they've gone up a ton, but they really haven't kept up with the price of houses to buy. And that's probably going to flip-flop a little bit.
I don't want to make you go backwards, but is there a diminishing return on square footage to dollar per square foot? You know, if I have an 8,000 square foot house, I probably can't get $1.50 a foot.
Correct.
So where does it start to?
Where's the sweet spot?
Yeah, the sweet spot. That's what I'm looking for.
So the market has shifted, as you know, again. But when we had lots of people that got flipped upside down in 2008, it was a different point than it is now. Mm-hmm. So when that happened, we had a whole bunch of renters or new landlords. We called them accidental landlords, people that did not want to be landlords. And they became landlords, and so we had this flood of single-family homes on the rental market compared to what we had before. Now, since the market's kind of corrected, all of those people that don't want to be landlords are no longer landlords. And so we have a huge shortage for those types of properties. And so the flip-flop point used to be kind of $1,800 on rent and about a $300,000 house. And now I feel like it's more like $400,000 to $500,000 house and about $33,000 to $3,200 on rents. So it's shifting.
Yeah, that's quite a bit.
With the increase in the rent going up every year, and you're seeing just kind of everything go up, are you seeing tenants trying to stay in their rentals longer, like you're doing longer terms and trying to not leave and lock in, things like that?
Yeah, people want to stay longer. I think we're seeing less turnover, but there's also a whole bunch more supply that's coming online. And it really hasn't come yet. We've seen a slow increase, but that's accelerating. So we have one builder that's come into town that wants to build 1,000 units. That's one builder. We have, it's becoming kind of a nationally, the nation has their eyeball on us right now. And as far as national builders and things like that, I've been talking to people from other places where that hasn't been as much. I haven't seen that as much in the past. So people that want to build, I want to come over and build 50 units. I want to come over and build 300 units. And it's only to rent out. So as that happens, I expect to see vacancy kind of creep. I expect to see rents to kind of stabilize.
With and Jess, correct me if I'm wrong, when we went to the realtor luncheon, I believe they said there was a meeting about community development that they're going to add 2,000 doors.
They've got like 2,000. They're expecting about 2,000 permits to issue this year when they normally end up like 400, and they're at like 2,000.
I haven't tracked this year's, but absolutely.
And you're seeing a lot of people wanting to build rental properties, not necessarily to sell. They're going to hold them.
Yeah, so lots of that has to do with like the bigger economic picture. So with inflation super high, one thing that holds its value when the dollar does not is real estate. And so,
could you say that louder?
Yes, I agree. When the dollar, if you had $100,000 last year and that same $100,000 was sitting in the bank, this year it's worth, $75,000? The nation tells us it's 9%, right? But I don't know if it feels like this to you guys, but it feels like a lot more.
Yeah.
And so if you have that same piece of property or that same $100,000 locked in property, that same piece of property is going to hold its value.
Boy, that's a good point. When you're talking the new stuff is going to come in and supply will go up and you may see vacancies increase, what happens to all the existing homes and maybe the more affordable end of things under $1,000? Are those going to be in more demand now because they're more affordable, or what happens with that lower
end? I can speak to you about the last 20 years, but that's it. I mean, I know about other markets, but
so you just started doing this then?
Yes.
If you don't know, I'm funny. I have to throw that in.
Anything in that affordable range is extremely stable because you can't build anything in the affordable range. So if you have properties that are 30 years old, rented out, they're clean and neat, but they're not like the fancy new property with the pool and all of the stuff. Those places hold their value and usually keep a low vacancy. The ones that have struggled historically have been the very, very top end. And so when you build the very top end and you're trying to get those rents like $1,700 or something like that, those are the ones that usually soften. The one thing that I'm not factoring in is the population growth. If we have a whole bunch of population growth, and so the demand continues to climb, even though we're building a whole bunch of, units, it's not going to matter. People need a place to live. But I don't know. It's all speculation at this point.
Do you have any idea or any say on any idea of how many units we're behind and how many more units we need to get to that plateau point? I mean, we're kind of looking at the same thing with real estate, with new construction. And I mean, our inventory is so low, but we're trying to figure out about how many more listings we need to kind of even the market
balance,
out.
right?
Where's the balance?
Yeah.
So, I like to think of the 5 to 7% vacancy rate as pretty flat, pretty kind of...
We use a 5 to 7% absorption rate. It's probably the same thing.
Yeah, so
Months, yeah.
If we think about vacancy in that 5 to 7% range, we consider that a fairly, supply and demand are matched up pretty good. Right now, it's not 5 to 7%. It's more like 1%. So right now, we still do not have enough supply. We are definitely on the lookout for that to change, though, with all of the construction.
Jake, so a quick question for people who might not think they want to be landlords. Are your landlords pretty happy right now? Are they pretty happy with their returns on their investments, what they're getting, and what they're able to buy and turn into rentals? Do you feel like that there is a lot of anxiety? They're kind of like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
People that are landlords right now want to be landlords. So like I was saying before, the people that got stuck with their house that's upside down and they got stuck renting, they sold their house because the market's returned. And so what that means is almost all of our landlords are happy right now. Almost all of our landlords are seeing good returns. Whenever a landlord buys a property as a rental, the purpose of it is to stabilize the value of their assets, keep their savings account flat, number one, and number two, create cash flow. And landlords are creating that right now.
On this one, this was interesting because if you were thinking of buying, some people say it's not a good time to buy a rental property because the prices are so high. Is it still? Is it always a good time to buy a rental property?
So whenever we look at a purchase price, when we want to compare the investment. So if you're buying a fourplex versus a duplex, you have to figure out the ratio between the cost of the property versus the rents. That's called a cap rate. And it's just a ratio between the two. So the cap rate compressed. If the cap rate's compressing, that means the cost of the investment is getting greater. So let's say a rental property, after all your expenses, gives you $1,000 a year back. That's how much you collect. If you paid $10,000, forgive the numbers, they're a little off, but let's say you pay $10,000 for that investment, it gives you $1,000 a year. That's a 10% return. That's a 10% cap rate. Before 3 years ago or so, cap rates were in the 6 to 7% range. That means a $100,000 investment would give you $6,000 or $7,000 a year. That's shrinking. So right now, the cap rate is pushing towards 4 and 5%. There's a few reasons that's happening. If I can plan on a 9% increase in rent, so the returns are going to increase by 10%, I can afford to buy, if I'm getting too nerdy, stop me. I can afford to buy for a lower percent return. So my $100,000 only returns $4,000. I'm okay with it because I know that rent's going to increase 10% next year and the year after. And so cap rates compress. They've compressed a lot.
So I was going to have you go through a bunch of questions, but I have to send you on your way because I know you have your next meeting. And I don't want you to be late for your meeting.
Thank you.
Yes, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you answer these questions and I'm going to post them in the comments of this video. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
Awesome. Let's give Jake
Thanks,
a round of
Jake.
applause.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jake.
You're awesome. Amazing.
Thank you.
And I want to plug one more time. Jake Durtschchi is owner of Jacob Grant Property Management. If you want to find out if buying an investment property is right for you, give them a call. And all of these slides came from their report on the market, the rental property market report they have on their website. You can go to jacobgrant.com and you can request this report to be coming through email. So
Very nice.
okay.
So the interesting thing about the market today is I've talked to a lot of people that have said, well, maybe I'll rent my house out instead of sell it, and then I'll buy my next house. Is that a good idea? Yes?
Yeah,
No?
absolutely.
It depends, right?
Yeah.
Jacob said the guys right now that are landlords choose to be landlords. Back in 2008 when the market tanked, we had a lot of default landlords because they had a house they couldn't sell. But now if you've got good equity and a super low rate, it may be a good time to hold on to that house, keep that 3% loan on it because things are changing. So let's talk about that. This graph says a lot. Freddie Mac came out with this to give a perspective of where we're at today. If the average right now is 5.27, let's look back to 1972. It was about the same. But in between, we had these huge spikes in 1982, 16, 18%. I hear about that all the time. I don't remember, but I hear about it. My dad talks about it all the time. A lot of us only remember this. What's the lowest you ever saw someone sign a 30-year loan? 2 point what?
I saw 2.5.
2.1.
Yeah.
Oh. If those were the good old days at 5.7 and these were your good old days, our perspective is just a small part of history, right? Because the good old days for these guys was 10% if it was 18 the few years before that. So if we're looking at 5.25 approximately, we're still in a pretty decent place, and affordability has not gone out of control. We're still, our incomes are going up a little, the housing market is going up, and we can still afford the monthly payment. If that goes to 20, things are way bad, right? But we're not there yet. What do you think, Hunter, is going to happen with rates over the next couple of years? And you're our local mortgage expert.
No, I appreciate that. It's hard to say, but we've seen this sharp increase over the last couple of months, sitting at 5.275. I mean, that's high from where we were at the beginning of the year. To your point, Jeremy, if rates go up to 10%, you're going to be glad that you locked in your rate right now. And that's what I'm telling people. If you're comfortable with the monthly payment at a 5% rate, if rates go down, you can always refinance and you can capitalize on those, lower
Great
interest
point.
rates. If rates go up, you're going to be happy that you're at the 5%. And so, when I'm talking with clients and going through monthly payments, as long as you're confident and comfortable paying that, then it's a smart decision. If you're, extending yourself a little bit, I would say, maybe look in a lower price range, or we can look at some different options as far as like maybe adjustable rate mortgages. Those are becoming a more popular thing right now, believe it or not. So it really is just case by case right now. And it's really, having a detailed conversation with the client. Are you going to move in 5 years? Is this a long-term thing? And so it's hard to say, looking at where the rates have gone, it's hard to say if they're going to go up. If they do, you're going to be glad, glad you locked in right now. So,
right. So adjustable rate mortgages scare people, but it's fixed for a certain amount of time and you can get substantially less interest. Our new line though, that I just got from Hunter is, if you don't lock in now, you will miss this rate if it goes up. But if it goes down, you can always refinance to that lower rate. Amazing.
If you don't lock in now, your rate is always adjustable.
Right. Oh, ho, ho. If this was a mic, I'd be dropping that deal.
See you next week.
So in April, just the month of April, compared to 2021, we had 217 homes closed, which is a decrease of 17%. So we're just looking at that 1 month. So let's look at the price ranges that we had the April closings in. 180 of those homes that sold were under 600,000. 31 were 600 to $1 million, and 6 over $1 million. So we see the majority are closing under 600,000. 217 of them sold. 37 of those transactions, or 20% represented, were cash, which is crazy. No financing contingency. 77% were got conventional financing, and then we had some government loans peppered in there as well.
So Jeremy, on that, just a really quick interesting stat is the cash was actually 102% list to sold, and conventional was 100. So that was interesting.
So you had to pay more
when you were cash.
When you were cash.
Interesting.
Jeremy, I had a comment about that cash deal. So how do you get to pay $600,000 cash for a house? It's the game of Monopoly. You start with a little house, you get a bigger house, you get a bigger house, you get a bigger house. You do not pay $600,000 cash without starting somewhere. So the best way to get, if you want to be in that bracket, start buying a little house.
Buy something.
Buy
Lock in
something.
the rate,
You got to
lock
buy
in
something.
the current value, and ride the wave up, right? I love that, Nicole. So here's the slide we were looking for. The year-to-date number of homes sold. We had a 17% decrease for the month of April, but year-to-date, we only saw a 3.3% decrease. So things are pretty stable. The number of units, homes that are selling is about the same. Average price, we saw a 29% increase for the month of April year over year, which it's more than 9% on the rental side, right, that we're seeing there. Let's look at the year-to-date then. Oh, good. These are perfect back-to-back, just like we like. So the year-to-date, we're still seeing the increase, but not as much, 25%. So if you owned a home last year, you got 25% appreciation in general.
So if you mentioned that, if you didn't put 20% down and you have mortgage insurance, you should possibly be able to call if you don't have an FHA loan, if you have a conventional, and maybe get your mortgage insurance dropped after 1 year.
Good point. In
Some
theory.
banks require
In
18
theory.
months, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
good point.
So you got to call your
Call
bank.
your bank.
Yep. So here's the year over year from 2017. Annually, you can see how much, over double in the last 5 years. So we are approaching an unaffordable market for our people that live here. The ones coming from out of state, bringing the money from their bigger houses are we're competing against.
It'd be interesting to see what our absorption rate was for 2017, 18, because that is the direct correlation.
Yeah. Let's see.
What if you put $193,000 in a savings account and you just watch that tick up every single year?
Yeah.
You're like, I dropped 193 in, and guess what? I've done,
Doubled your money.
yeah.
Let's go back here real quick because we want to talk about the list to sold. If you listed your house at $100,000 last year, the average you could get is $103,000. That's 3.5% over asking price. This year, it's not quite as much over asking price. We're seeing a little bit of a decrease, which means there's more available inventory, and we're going basically from 20 competing offers down to 4 to 8, right? So there's still a lot of buyer activity over the amount of supply of homes, and we are getting more than ask price, but not quite as much. It's a bit of an easing there that we're feeling. Year to date, same thing. We're just seeing that same trend that we're not paying quite as much over. So that's good. Chad,
Yeah.
you want to talk about days on market?
All right, days on market. We are seeing a pretty similar trend. We're continuing to decrease. So basically, last year for April, we were at 30 days on the market. And for April of 2022, we're at 17 days on the market. So basically, we saw a 56% decrease year over year in April. That's big. That's
Selling
really big.
faster.
Yep. Year to date, similar. I mean, it was 27 days on the market last year as opposed to 23 this year is what we're trending for the year. So we're basically seeing a 15% decrease.
We have to remember that April over April is a snapshot. This is a better indicator of a trend than just month over, but it's always interesting to see month over month.
Bottom line, it was a hot market last year. It's still a hot market so far. So with all the uncertainty in the market, the stats are saying it's still a pretty hot market. Let's look at average days on market over time. So basically we saw in 2017, we were at 54 days on the market. And that was good for us. I mean, that was still low as opposed to what we'd seen before. And and in 2018 we were at 46, and then we went down to 40, and then 34, and then our big jump was really from 2020 to 2021 at 22 days on the market. So let's look at a little bit of a snapshot of April average price per square foot. We were at $191 a foot. An average square foot of a home was 2,400 square feet.
And that's closed houses. People
Closed.
paid that much per square foot.
Yep. And average home's about 2,500 square feet. As far as more snapshot, 384 homes came on the market. And that's up 31%. So what are we seeing right now? We're seeing supply increase at a very large percent. We're going to go into that. But I mean, this last month, we saw a shift with interest rates, and we're seeing a shift in supply. We always anticipate a shift in inventory this time of year, but this is a big shift that we're seeing. 47 of those 384 were listed and closed. Average list price is $407,000. Average days on market was 12, so they went fast. 291 homes went pending. 28% of those, or 83 of those, fell apart. Do you guys remember we've been sitting around 20, 17, 18% in previous months? In March, we dropped considerably because everybody who had that low rate kept it and they just moved forward. But we saw a higher amount. That 10% that we had dropped before, well, we gained 20%, from March. So we had a number of deals that actually fell through.
And what we don't know is why they fell apart, and did they buy something else? But the fact that it was in the month that the interest rates had the huge spike. If they hadn't had a locked rate, if their rate wasn't locked in, did they not get approved? There's a lot of change out there in April.
Yeah.
What I'd sure like to see is 28%. I know Ashley has mentioned before, she doesn't have 28% fallout rate. I don't have 28% fallout rate. Do any of our buyers agents have a 28% fallout rate? Probably not. So if you're not with a Murdoch man-wearing agent,
There it is.
you're not going to lose your house.
Yeah.
Right,
well,
Jeremy?
I mean, a 28% fallout rate, that means
it.
that 28% of the deals didn't go the way that they thought they were going to go, which means they weren't prepared. They didn't have a game plan. They weren't prepared with financing. They weren't aware of the inspection. They weren't aware of closing timeframes. They weren't in a position to be able to negotiate or be able to deal with the stress.
Or weren't expecting or weren't prepped properly on what the rates were going to do, too. And so this is why we need to, you have got to talk to us well before you're ready to actually start looking at houses. Like well before. I had a closing last week, and I met with them first time a year and a half ago. And so, at minimum, a couple months before you physically are walking into a house, you need to sit down and have a conversation with us so we can start, so we can do a strategy session with you and start going through what it looks like to buy a house so that you're prepared, which is the main reason why our, termination rate is way lower than that. And so yeah.
There's a misconception in the market that just because you're a real estate agent, you're qualified to represent a buyer or a seller in a transaction. The state says you're okay to do it, but it doesn't mean you have any training to do that. And I would say that is a serious indication of training and lack of expectations and preparedness for other agents in the market to have a third of all offers fall through.
Well, Jessica, how many homes does the average agent sell, just on average, locally?
3 to 5.
3 to 5. How many did we do last
A year.
In the year.
Yeah. I mean, our agents are averaging over 20 a year.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it just, do you take your car to a mechanic who has, who's fixed one car a year or who has fixed 20? They both probably have the same amount of training, but it comes down to experience. And this is the biggest purchase that you make in your lifetime. So when you're looking for a real estate agent, make sure you're interviewing them, make sure you have good questions, and call us, of course.
All right, current homes on the market in Bonneville, Bingham, and Jefferson County, there are 275. Last month, we were at 197, and we were super happy about that. Well, guess what? We're 40% higher than that, and our absorption rate's at 1.3 months. So we are definitely shifting quickly. What's funny is it takes a while to get somewhere, but when it shifts pretty quick. I mean, rates went up fast. Supply is going up fast. I mean, a year ago, we were thinking, how are we going to get out of this? Well, guess what? We're getting out of this because it's moving and it's going fast.
And that's great. And small corrections like this is what stops a market from crashing. And so the interest rates were raised to help, mellow out the market a little bit. And so it's still going to be another great year, for buyers and sellers to buy. We don't see the market coming down, and small shifts like this are what stop it from getting out of control. And what's been happening the last couple of years wasn't sustainable. And so it's great that the rates went up a little bit, levels out the market, and it's still a great time to buy and get in, and the market's not coming down, and so get into something now.
Yep. Yeah, we are still a very strong seller's market, and we are still a very healthy market. Okay, so I mean, we're a long ways away from the sky is falling, that's for sure. All right, so we're looking at some stats. These are current active properties. This is interesting. This is very different than the one that Jeremy just showed you on closed. So basically, we have from 100 to 500,000, 100 properties for sale. And really that's from 200 to 500,000, because under 200,000 is a basically non-existent market for single family homes. And from 500 to a million, we have 150 homes on the market. Well, guess what? Jeremy was just showing us that of the ones that sold, only 30 of those from 600 to a million sold. So, I mean, we have a lot of homes in the higher price range that are not moving at all. They're overpriced, and there's just not as much demand in that higher price range. But the ones between 200 and 600,000, those are moving. That is a fresh cycle. We almost have two different markets. We have more of a stagnant, higher price market, and we still have that fast river of real estate market in that lower priced.
So if we were to do a quick snapshot of absorption rate in the three categories, we sold 180 homes below $500,000. And so if we sold 180 homes this month and no more homes came on the market, we're at like a week and a half of inventory. We sold 30 homes in the 500,000 to $1 million. So it would be 5 months of inventory, almost to a balanced market. We sold 6 homes in that. So, I mean, you start to see the inventory levels based on the sales. That's where you see, is it a buyer seller's market? It actually has 3 different markets.
Yeah, and I remember in years past, we'd said, well, how's the market? Well, it depends on what price range, because at a higher end, it's actually a buyer's market. And, at the lower end, it's a strong seller's market. We're moving back into that direction where we're going to see a seller's market, a buyer's market more for the higher end stuff.
At some point, 6 months of inventory.
6 months of inventory.
So it's going to be a minute.
Yeah.
And that was even before, a few years ago. That's normal for that, that higher price. It's just now it's over $1 million, where before it was over, 700,000 is where it was a little bit more of a balanced / buyer's market, and now it's just moved up. So that's fairly normal.
So it's interesting. This chart is different than what you had, Jeremy. This 600,000 is looped into that bottom one. But look, there's the most amount of houses between 500 and 600, and they have the shortest days on market. So if that was the same grid as you had, that would make that below 600,000 a way different market. So I think that line, not that line shouldn't be there. I'm just saying that's the lowest amount, 28 days on market in that sweet spot right there.
I don't know who builds these slides. Get her.
Who made this thing?
Who is
Get
in charge
her.
of this?
All right, so next slide. So as far as the amount of pendings we have 395 pendings, and average price $445,000. Average price per square foot $200 a foot, and days on market 27. So average price $445. I mean, even with interest rates, they're still raising. So.
And again, that's an average price per square feet. I see a lot of buyers coming in and focusing on the price per square feet. It depends on what price range you're in, and depends on the type of house you're buying. That is per square feet. Don't base everything off of 200.
And remember, the more land, the higher price per square foot.
Right. And the smaller it is, the higher the price per square feet. So
outbuildings, improvements, there's so much that goes into play.
Yep. All right, let's look at Idaho Falls. So when we say Idaho Falls, we are saying the area of Skyline, IF, Bonneville, Hillcrest, and Thunder Ridge, the 5 high schools within those boundaries. We have, as far as in April goes, we had 153 homes sold in April, and that
which is up.
Is up 17%. And homes on the market, 161, which is also
Up.
and that's above. That's 53% above. I mean, that's I don't like the numbers when we're like above 20%, you know. So I mean, but we're seeing a lot more inventory on the market in Idaho Falls, and absorption rate is over a month.
And that's great. Buyers, start
Yeah.
looking now.
Yeah,
While
start
the rates,
looking now.
you can get it for a better rate.
Yep.
That shows a lot of optimism from the builders. They are still cranking out those houses.
They're still pumping it in. All right, as far as a breakdown of homes in Idaho Falls, we have 54 that are under 500,000, and again, most of those really are between 300,000 and 500,000. And to Nicole's point, you know, again, that the most amount of homes on the market are in that $500,000 to $600,000 range, and that is almost the lowest days on market as well. But anyway, it's you know, we're shifting, and we again have a lot above 600,000. So,
And look at those days on market. I mean, they're those big upper end ones. They're hanging out. And they're
Yep.
going to be a while probably.
yep. As far as the Idaho Falls area, we have 244 pending listings. An average sales price similar to the bigger area, $450,000. Average price per square foot at 182, and average days on market at 18. And so those are our stats. Any other comments or any questions before we move on to the next section? All right, well, let's turn it over to Jessica.
All right, let's talk about our local impact, which is our nosy neighbors. So last month we visited some really cool places. The Egyptian Coffee House, which is right out the door over there, super cool. The Pix Selfie Studio, if you haven't seen that one, really cool. If you want to go and have a really cool experience creating awesome selfies. Mama Fla, authentic Italian cuisine, a super hot restaurant right now and delicious. And I could pretty much listen to those guys argue and talk in Italian all day long. So it's very authentic. And then the Healing Hands Metaphysical Store was super cool. A lot of really neat things and herbs. And they have a really cool herb specialist inside of there.
Herbalist?
Herbalist. And
Herbalist?
herbalist, but very cool, that makes custom teas, and you can get a lot of really cool herbs inside of there. We've got some really fun ones coming up this month. Farrell's Clothing, Cutting Edge Electric, Screen Graphics, and Classic Flooring, and some more. So tune into Nosy Neighbors, and if you love local businesses like we do, head over there and like and follow that page. And that is the stats.
Hey!
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
If you're one of those people that your friends have said that you would be great in real estate, then reach out to us, because you probably will be, and let us help you get there.